Hello, everyone. Today, I want to share a story that changed my life. This is the story of my relationship with my mother, about pain, forgiveness, and how we found our way back to each other after years of silence. She gave me life, and I wished she would disappear. I hated her stares, her silence, her endless demands for perfection. She was cold, strict, always right. I was tired, broken, misunderstood. We lived under one roof like enemies, not even sure why we were fighting. And then, she got sick. The world stopped. It was too late to scream, too terrifying to stay silent. And in that stillness, for the first time, I saw her, not as a mother, but as a woman. Wounded, lonely, just like me. This isn't just a story about a difficult relationship. It's a confession, a journey through anger, pain, and silence, toward forgiveness. And maybe toward a love we both thought was lost forever. We often assume that time heals everything, that days turning into weeks and years will gently soften the edges of every sharp word and cold stare. But time on its own does nothing. It only passes. For years, every morning in our house felt like a battlefield. I would come down for breakfast, and her eyes would immediately scan me, judging my clothes, my hair, the circles under my eyes. "You're wearing that to school?" she would ask, not looking up from her coffee. "Yes," I would reply, already defensive. Was all she would say. But that small sound carried the weight of all her disappointment. I stopped bringing friends over. I stopped telling her about my day. I stopped trying to make her proud, because nothing ever seemed good enough. The silence between us grew thicker, heavier, until it filled every room in the house. My father would try to mediate sometimes. "She just wants what's best for you," he would say, his voice tired. "No," I would reply. "She wants me to be what's best for her." We continued like this, circling each other, wounded, too afraid to reach out, too stubborn to give in. Every birthday, every holiday became an exercise in polite distance. We were experts at existing in the same space without truly seeing each other. I counted the days until I could leave for college. Then came the call. I was in my apartment, studying for finals. My father's voice cracked as he told me she was in the hospital. Tests, scans, words that didn't make sense together. I remember standing in that sterile hospital hallway, watching her through the door's window. She looked so small in that bed. Not the towering figure of judgment I had constructed in my mind, but just a woman, fragile, afraid. When I entered the room, she turned to me. No criticism in her eyes, no expectations, just relief. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I came," I replied. And for the first time in years, we both cried. The diagnosis wasn't terminal, but it was serious. She would need care, support, time to recover. My father worked long hours. I was the only one who could help. So I moved back home, into my old bedroom with its faded posters and childhood memories, back into the battlefield. But something had shifted. The enemy lines had blurred. One night, while helping her to bed, she grabbed my hand. "I'm sorry," she said, "for so many things." I froze. In all our years, I had never heard those words from her. "Me too," I managed to reply. It wasn't everything that needed to be said, but it was a start. What truly begins healing is attention, and in our case, it was the attention we finally gave each other. My mother and I developed new habits. Small, almost unnoticeable at first. We'd share a pot of tea in the evenings, not always talking, but simply being near each other. I started asking about her work, and she started listening when I spoke about my life with genuine curiosity. "Do you remember when I tried out for the school play?" I asked one evening. She looked puzzled. "The one you didn't get? You told me I shouldn't waste my time on things that wouldn't lead anywhere practical." Her face fell. "Did I really say that?" "Yes. I was afraid," she admitted after a long pause. "My father had crushed all my creative dreams. I thought I was protecting you from disappointment. You were passing on the hurt," I said, not unkindly. She nodded. "I suppose we often do. Trust, once broken, doesn't come back in a wave. It returns in drops." I remember the day she left a note for me on the kitchen table. Just a simple message saying she was proud of how I handled a stressful situation at school. I cried when I read it. It was the first time in years she had acknowledged something I did without a but following it. We had a bad day too, of course. There was the afternoon we argued over something trivial, the grocery list, I think, and suddenly we were back in our old patterns, voices raised, doors slammed. 2 days of silence followed. I was ready to give up, to believe we couldn't change after all. Then I found a note on my pillow. I want to do better. I love you. Let's not lose this again. That was the difference now. We knew what we stood to lose. One afternoon, I caught her looking through old photo albums. Not the ones she usually showed guests, but the older ones tucked away in a drawer. There were pictures of her as a girl, all wide eyes and crooked braids, smiling with an innocence I'd never seen before. That was me before life got loud, she said, and we laughed. But something about the phrase stayed with me. Before life got loud. I wondered what I would have been like if I had grown up seeing her more like that, or if she had felt safe enough to be that version of herself around me earlier. We took a weekend trip together, just the two of us, to a small lake house a family friend had offered us. It was quiet there, surrounded by trees and the sound of water lapping gently against the shore. We spent hours walking, sitting by the dock, and cooking simple meals. On the second night, as we sat on the porch watching a storm roll in, she asked, "Do you think we would have made it here if nothing had ever gone wrong?" I thought about that for a long time. Maybe we needed the breaking to find the beauty, I finally said. Maybe if everything had been easy, we would never have learned how to truly see each other. She took my hand then, and we sat in silence as the rain began to fall. When spring arrived, we planted flowers together. A bed of lavender and daisies near the kitchen window. She let me choose the colors. I let her decide the layout. It wasn't about control anymore. It was about creation, about making something new together. Years later, I look back and I no longer feel the sting. The sharp edges of our past have softened into something almost gentle.
Familiar.
Like old photographs tucked in a drawer. Not forgotten, but no longer painful to touch. My mother and I still speak often. Our conversations aren't always profound. Sometimes they're about groceries or the weather or what she saw on a walk that reminded her of me. But beneath the ordinary is something unshakable. A bond rebuilt. A love chosen, day after day. If you're struggling with difficult family relationships, here are 3 important lessons I learned on our journey. See the person, not just the role. My healing began when I started seeing my mother not just as a parent who had hurt me, but as a complex human being with her own wounds and struggles. Small moments matter more than grand gestures. Our relationship wasn't rebuilt through dramatic confrontations or perfect apologies. It was healed through cups of tea, shared silences, and everyday kindnesses. Forgiveness is a practice, not an event. I had to choose forgiveness again and again, even when old patterns threatened to return. It wasn't a one-time decision, but a daily commitment. The garden we planted continues to grow. She sends me pictures of the flowers, proud of how they bloom in spite of the changing seasons. I visit often, not because I have to, but because I want to, because her presence feels like a place I can return to, not escape from. And sometimes, in the quiet moments, sipping tea on her porch, watching the sky change colors, sharing a comfortable silence, I think about everything we endured, everything we learned, and I feel grateful. Not grateful that it was hard, but grateful that we didn't give up. If you're holding on to pain in a relationship that still matters to you, I hope this story reminds you that it's never too late to begin again. The road is rarely easy, but it can lead somewhere beautiful. Thank you for listening.